Don't feed the bears. Rangers post these signs in Yellowstone National Park, but you know, people feed the bears anyway. So what's the problem? Well, rangers regularly drive around and pick up dead bears along the side of the road. They literally starve because tourists weren't around to feed them. They become so addicted to the handouts that when the tourists leave, they just starve and die. This is amazing, because within walking distance is a forest full of nourishment. The regular diet consists of thistle and cutworm moths, grasses, sedges, dandelion, clover, white-bark pine nuts, and ants. Not hamburgers, popcorn, candy, and other junk food. But you know, like these bears, many Christians are dying because they are addicted to handouts too. Holy handouts. The kingdom is full of nourishment. It's full of opportunities, all within walking distance. But many dry up and die just waiting for the next holy handout. The core issue for us is this, Ephesians 5, verses 8 through 10. For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of light. For the fruit of light consists in goodness and righteousness and truth. And find out what pleases the Lord. Now, although God does do things for us, He answers prayers, He delivers us from harms, He brings healing, He opens doors, we cannot measure His goodness by what He has done for us lately. And if this core issue is off, we will go through periods when God seems distant, and we will grow discouraged and even disheartened. We hear stories of God's intervention, amazing intervention in the lives of others, and we wonder why God hasn't been there for us. Hey, where's my handout? Authentic Christian faith is this. We live lives that please God rather than expecting Him to please us. Paul captures this in 2 Corinthians 5. He says we live by faith, not by sight. So we make it our goal to please Him, whether we're at home in the body or away from it, for we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that each one may receive what is due him for the things done while in the body, whether good or bad. Well, in Hebrews chapter 11, there's a long list of names of faithful believers who endured hardship because they trusted God, who delayed the realization of their dreams for a long period. Verses 39 and 40 reads, These were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised. God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us would they be made perfect. Wow. The folks of Hebrews 11 sacrificed because they believed someday they would be with God and experience His full presence. For them, this was enough. Can you say this? Do you believe the promise is enough? Hebrews 11 and 22, by faith Joseph, when his end was near, spoke about the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt and gave instructions about his bones. Wow, what a story, Joseph. Now we know Joseph was badly mistreated by his own brothers, and his reward? Slavery. He was then falsely accused of sexual misconduct. What was his reward? Prison. Joseph is mentioned in Hebrews 11 because he never assumed God deserted him. God finally did deliver him. But it was a long haul, a very long haul. Joseph was steadfastly faithful because he had the core issue of life down. Job 13:15, Job says, though he slay me, yet I will hope in him. Now, Job was clueless. We got the whole story. We can turn and know that there is a Job chapter 42. Job didn't know that he was in a book. Can you say what Job said? Though you slay me, yet my hope is still in you. God never showed up in a dream and said, hey, Job, hang in there, buddy. This is a really big deal in heaven. You're being written about. The promise was enough for Job. Come to think of it, the only promise God makes us is in Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. What's the promise? God will work it out. He doesn't tell us when. He doesn't tell us how. So what's the good? It's God's glory, and it's our development. Psalm 56 and verse 8 says, God will not waste our tears. This verse says that God lists our tears and places them in his record. By faith, we must believe in the goodness of this God. That's the challenge and the passion and the direction of our faith. Now here's a foundational passage. Genesis 3. Now the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals that Yahweh had made. He said to the woman, did God really say you must not eat from the tree, of any tree in the garden? The woman said to the serpent, we may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say, you must not eat from the tree that is in the middle of the garden. You must not touch it, or you will die. You will not surely die, the serpent said to the woman. For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be open and you'll be like God, knowing good and evil. When the woman saw the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and she ate it. And she gave some to her husband, who was also with her, and he ate it. Then the eyes of both of them were open, and they realized that they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. Now this is a foundational passage, because the evil one will continue to go back and employ this same tactic over and over again. Let me explain. How did the serpent tempt Eve? He convinced her that God was holding out on her, that there was more yet to get. Now think about this. They're living in paradise, carefree living, no disease, no weeds, no extreme weather, no illnesses, no root canals, no taxes. And yet the serpent was saying that God was not being generous enough. Please, don't fall for that old lie. God has already done more for us than we deserve. Redeeming us is the most important gift we've received. Everything else we get is gravy. We worship God for his overwhelming generosity. Let nothing hinder the theology of the goodness of God. So here's the deal. Stop being presumptuous with God. Welfare mentality is killing our faith. Waiting for God to do something that he intends for you to do yourself is high presumption. The bears died because they presumed the food was coming. They turned their backs on what nature had already provided. Some of us are within walking distance of the kingdom, within walking distance of the bounties offered in our Canaan experience. All we need to do is turn around and feed, feast, be filled on God's blessings. Father, forgive us for waiting on you when we should be enjoying what you've already provided. Help us to be like Abraham, who endured many difficult years when heaven was silent. And yet Abraham was faithful. Father, help us to know the joy of you and not just your gifts. May we live our lives to please you regardless. We present ourselves to you afresh. Lord, take our lives and let them be consecrated, Lord, to thee. In Jesus' holy name, amen.